quadratic formula. Hey! No more factoring going, what multiplies to what, just shove them into this formula and you're good to go. Watch this, it's fun. Okay, so the quadratic formula is what we derived in the constructing understanding part. It's a beautiful little formula that just makes us have to understand the numbers that go here follow the same pattern all the time when you're trying to do a completing the square. So we can put those into a formula and just find x right away. What you want to understand before we get started is that their order matters. We have ax squared plus bx plus c. So this number, and this number are going to be, their order is going to determine where you put them in the formula. So here, if I'm trying to solve x squared plus 4x minus 1, what number goes in front of the x squared? You might be like, oh, there is no number there, but then you remember, oh, that's right, there's 1. How many x squareds do I have? If I have an x squared, I have 1. So the 1 goes here. So the first thing that I do when I am looking at these things is I figure out what my values are. So this one's my A, this one's my B, and this one's my C. I could even write them out. A equals 1, B equals 4, and C equals negative 1. Now notice that the negative comes with the number. So any sign that's in front comes with the number. Now my formula is, I'll just use green here to make it stand out, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And we derived that by changing a normal quadratic equation around so that it equaled b, or x, sorry. All right, now all I have to do to solve these equations is plug in the values where they belong. So let's make this a little bit more fun, and we'll color code them. We'll even change that one. Make it all nice and tidy. So when I plug them into my formula, I know that they're going to go in a particular order. So x equals, b is 4, so it's going to be a negative 4 to start us off with because it says negative b. Plus or minus, we'll deal with that later, square root 4 squared minus, and the 4 is standard, it stays there. It's just something that we came up with when we were doing our equation. 4 times 1, because a is 1, times negative 1, because c is negative 1. All of that is underneath the square sign. Now, on the bottom side, I've just got 2 times a is negative 1, or sorry, just 1. So now I can just solve those values. You saw where they go. Now we're just going to simplify. So x equals, I've still got the negative 4 plus or minus, but under the square root sign, 4 squared is going to be 16. So I can write 16 minus, now 4 times 1 is just 4, times negative 1 is going to actually be positive 4. So I can do this, I can deal with this in 2 ways. I can leave the negative there, or I can assign it to the negative 4. I'd prefer to just go, okay, negative 4 times 1 is negative 4, times negative 1 is actually positive 4, and then I'm done. So that shortened that up quite a bit. Over 2. So this is going to give me the square root of 20. This is a part where we're going to have to look at it and realize that 20 has a perfect square root, or perfect square factor of 4, so it's going to be negative 4 plus or minus 2 root 5 all over 2. And then when I look at these guys, I go, oh, hang on, there's a 4, a 2, and a 2 here, so I can actually reduce it to negative 2 plus or minus root 5, and the 2, these guys have all simplified and so they're gone. So this is my answer, but there's two numbers there. It's either going to be negative 2 plus root 5 or negative 2 minus root 5. And so if I wanted to actually use my calculator to figure out what those are, then I would write x equals negative 2 plus root 5, and I would use my calculator. I would type in negative 2 plus root 5, and the answer is 0.236. So you can write it like that, or if they actually want you to solve it out into decimal form, then you're obviously going to have to round off, because this is actually 0.23606797775. That's why we lose value when we do this. But once in a while in your book, they actually want the value rounded off, and they'll usually tell you to the nearest hundredth or to the nearest thousandth, something like that. The next one is x equals negative 2 minus root 5, which is obviously going to give us a negative value because we're subtracting from a negative. So we write negative 2 minus root 5, and it gives us negative 4.236. So I've got two possible values for x. I've got this one and I've got that one. Now if you were doing a word problem where you were talking about time or something like that, then obviously the negative one wouldn't be working, so you'd still be looking for that kind of extraneous answer where it's like, okay, but in this context, that one doesn't count. When you're just doing problems like this, you're just going to have two answers. So I'm going to erase this before I start with B, because obviously this takes quite a bit of space. But as we can see, the first step is to identify your A, B, and C. The second step is to put them into the formula where they belong. Then you just simplify the formula and work out your two answers.